try something smart to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Thursday, the 17th of October, 2024. This is program number 1265 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Alex George Jr. And of course, right here in St. Lucia, it is the Feast of Marguerite. Vive la Marguerite. And to all those who are enjoying the day, hope it's a great one for you. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. You can also follow us on WhatsApp. So you can also call in on WhatsApp. That is 724-0008. You can message in or you can call in on that number. Again, it is 724-0008. That's our WhatsApp number. Of course, if you're listening to us on 101.1 FM radio, that's great. But we also are streaming live on our website, rcistlucia.com, as well as on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. And please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And speaking about just that and sharing some love, of course, to some birthday people for today. We want to send out birthday greetings to Mr. Michael Hart. Happy birthday to you, sir. We do hope that you're having a splendid birthday celebration. And also to Mrs. Leslie Crane Mitchell, who's the head here at UE Global Campus. Happy birthday to you. And we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday as well. A bit of history for today. Going back to the year 1854 when French and British forces bombarded Sevastopol for the first time during the Crimean War. 1907 on this day saw Guglielmo Marconi's company begin the first commercial transatlantic wireless service. And that was between Glass Bay, Nova Scotia in Canada, and Clifden in Ireland. 1943 on this day saw the Burma Railway being built by Allied POWs, prisoners of war, and Asian laborers, and that was completed for use by the Japanese army. It became known as the Death Railway. 1973, OPEC's oil ministers used oil as an economic weapon in the Arab-Israeli war, mandating a cut in exports and recommending an embargo against unfriendly states. And in 2017, on this day, Islamic State headquarters in Raqqa was declared under full control of the U.S.-led alliance by Syrian Democratic Forces. Spokesperson Talal Sello after 4 months of fighting there. We now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Brazilians, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, we are expecting to have some guests coming in sometime during the program. So if and when they do arrive, we will, in fact, of course, segue into that conversation, which we've actually had planned regarding that matter. But of course, some very unfortunate news, which we do have to make mention of, coming out of just last night. what appears to be another homicide in St. Lucia, and this time that of a teenager, a teenage girl. And just to quickly read that story coming from St. Lucia Loop News, it reads as follows: a 15-year-old girl has become the island's latest homicide victim after being shot multiple times by masked gunmen on Wednesday evening in Lakudu, Castries. The victim, identified as Riley, was frequently seen in the Waterworks community where the shooting occurred at approximately 7:15 p.m., sending shockwaves through the normally quiet neighborhood. Quote, "In front my house she was shot," one resident said, still shaken by the evening's events. Another resident recounted, quote, "The guys came through a shortcut by the convent in Cedars and made their way here," end quote. The gunfire startled residents, many of whom expressed disbelief. "Things like that don't happen here," one local stated. Police have launched an investigation into the incident, and as of now, no arrests have been made. This latest shooting pushes St. Lucia's homicide toll to 65 for the year. And that story coming from St. Lucia Loop News. And of course, very unfortunate that we are now faced with yet another situation of a very, very young life lost. Effectively, an individual, female in St. Lucia, I think is expected to live on average, life expectancy is 75 or thereabouts. And so, effectively, this person is really not seeing the vast majority of their life. They've only lived 20% of their life. They've lost 80% of their life, the future that they could have had, the opportunities, the experience, the contribution that this individual could have made has simply been lost. And of course, it's very, very unfortunate when we are facing a teenager, 15 years old, being snuffed away due to gun violence. Of course, no doubt there will be many, many stories circulating, and there'll be many comments in the news and the days to come and about this situation. But of course, we are seeing this continued trend, albeit generally speaking, we've seen more males being victims and perpetrators as well of these kinds of acts. But the fact is, it really has no boundaries in terms of age, in terms of gender at this point in time, and certainly no boundaries in terms of where such crimes are happening. So, very, very unfortunate for, of course, the community of Waterworks Road, where this in fact occurred. More specifically, the part of that road known as Lakudu, and so certainly we send out our commiserations to the family and relatives of the individual, and of course, it raises lots of questions as to why would a 15-year-old be a target by masked gunmen in this style. And many have come out and are commenting about, the issues that we are facing right now. And one of them, in fact, is Dr. Venus Cherry. And he was recently interviewed about this entire matter. And this story is covered by St. Lucia Times. And just quickly to share that as well with you. Amid a troubling increase in reports of teenagers, especially females, leaving home and going missing for days, Rise St. Lucia Inc. Chairman Dr. Venus Cherry has highlighted the urgent need to address the root causes of this issue. Cherry stressed the critical role parents play in addressing and preventing these cases by improving their parenting skills and understanding the needs of their children. According to the Rise St. Lucia chairman, there are two main categories of missing teenagers: legitimately missing and those who run away due to various challenges at home. He pointed out that the reasons for running away often involve different forms of abuse, including mental, physical, financial, and sexual abuse, issues that are frequently hidden and unaddressed within families. Quote, these kids are no longer going to stay quiet and just take it. They're going to speak out in one way or the other, and if that means running away, they will, he said. Dr. Cherry also highlighted a concerning trend of young people being exposed to or engaging in early sexual activities, sometimes encouraged by adults who exploit their vulnerabilities. He calls this a, quote, sad case and emphasized the need for parents to show more affection and attention to their children. Quote, hug them, kiss them, tell them you love them. A lot of children never get that, he noted, stressing that many teens may be running away because they feel unheard and unloved. Dr. Cherry observed that a significant part of the problem lies in how parents communicate and discipline their children. Quote, we don't listen to our children enough, he said, pointing out that harsh verbal abuse and public humiliation can severely damage a child's self esteem, making them more susceptible to negative influences. Quote, if you keep calling your child Jumet and telling them they're nasty, what do you think will happen? Their self esteem becomes low and they become easy targets, he added. Cherry addressed the intergenerational cycle of broken homes where children who lack love and proper guidance become parents themselves, perpetuating harmful behaviors. He called for widespread parenting education programs across St. Lucia to break this cycle. We need a lot more parenting programs in this country, he urged, stressing that parents need to understand the long term impacts of their words and actions on their children's mental health. However, Dr. Cherry pointed out that no official platform or government body in St. Lucia is currently dedicated to educating parents on effective parenting. I don't think there is any official channel or ministry responsible, and maybe that is the problem. We don't have it. He called while calling for action to establish such avenues. That story coming from St. Lucia Times. And certainly a lot to unpack and to take into consideration based on what Dr. Cherry is saying, because certainly he is absolutely right. You know, at one point in time when I was much, much younger, I actually thought, growing up as a child, that when, you know, you heard about Planned Parenthood, the St. Lucia Planned Parenthood Association, and I actually often thought that that was some sort of association that was geared towards providing, you know, parental education and preparing individuals for parenting and that sort of thing, which of course we later on found out that that actually is not the the raison d'etre for such an organization. But the point that is being made by Dr. Cherry is such a very, very important one. Parenting education is so very important, given the fact that we know how critical it is in terms of child rearing, especially that early period, that 0 to 5 area, which is in terms of age that has been identified and by so many experts, by and research which has been done over the years, is vital for the development of children, and even beyond that, of course, to bring them up to adulthood, to bring them into adolescence, and then beyond, is so very, very, very important in developmental development of young people, and that requires good parenting. Parenting is the bedrock. Families are the bedrock of society, and they have to be strong. They have to be capable of delivering what is needed. Now, of course, when we look at a lot of the things that we're seeing, I mean, we've now come to a point where we've had made certain achievements. We've got universal secondary education, for example. We have guaranteed every child a place in school up to about the age of 16. There's so many other programs out there in terms of scholarships and bursaries and support systems for families at this point. And we know of after-school programs, and we have even the whole structure of the society, the demographics are now lending themselves to things which we were told are beneficial to growing up. In my time into school, I think attending the St. Aloysius RC Boys Primary School, infant school, on average, the class size was about 39, 40. Those are the numbers that you were talking about, that teachers had to manage those classes. The average class size in St. Lucia right now in the education system is closer to 12 or 13. And so you can see that we've got smaller classes, we've got more resources, we've got lots of opportunities for learning, for exposure, for children to do well. We've issues like even the modes of examination have changed, things like the CPEA, which has been brought in. And so we've seen some remarkable changes. But at the same time, unfortunately, we're dealing with a significant and serious issue of violence in society. And it therefore, and we're also dealing, of course, with the issues of, even though there are places now, you're dealing with dropouts, you're dealing with individuals who are not remaining in school, who, of course, are, as being made mention by Dr. Cherry, are running away for a multiplicity of different reasons. And as he rightfully pointed out, of course, the impacts of technology as well and social media and communications are very real. And quite often we've been hearing quite a number of stories about in the news, parents going out to the media and reporting that their children are missing, and they're imploring individuals to come back. And quite a lot of times it's a female, and of course sometimes we even see replies, responses coming from these individuals, almost suggesting that they're not really missing at all. And so you're in a situation where the technology is there, but we've got to be certainly careful as to how it's utilized in terms of the naming and shaming, because that sometimes has its own impacts on children as well, which is precisely why in dealing with a lot of cases of involving children, their identities are generally protected and are not disclosed to the public. So there is a lot that we have to still achieve as a society, and to realize that there are some underlying issues that are still impacting on quality of life, on individuals who are gravitating towards certain lifestyles, certain practices that are having those knock-on effects. And the issue of broken homes is certainly one of those significant challenges that we still have to overcome to break that intergenerational violence that is an abuse that sometimes is being experienced by children. So Ministry of Equity and the St. Lucia's Social Development Fund, Department of Human Services, the Family Court, the Vulnerable Persons Units within the various divisions of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, the Drug and Substance Abuse Council. There are a lot of individuals within the government agencies, as well as beyond the government agencies, who certainly have to be doing quite a lot of hand holding with respect to this issue of crime abatement, crime prevention. In fact, just today, there was an initiative being put forward by the Republic of China, Taiwan. Every year they fund a sort of a forum, which is known as a Global Cooperation and Training Forum, GCTF. And they, in fact, today, this morning, held one of these events, bringing a number of stakeholders from across St. Lucia, both in the public realm as well as in the NGO sector, civil society, to come together on the matter, on the theme of social security and crime prevention. And certainly, it is something that we have to continue to see, continue to monitor, because it really has to come down to everybody knowing how to respond when faced with such situations. What are the options? Where can people get assistance? Where are the gaps that need support? And certainly, one of the gaps being brought forward by Dr. Cherry is the matter of parental education. Getting parents to be prepared at the various stages along the way as they, in fact, raise their children. And, so a lot of it, of course, is how do you develop, good psychosocial skills? How do you develop good communication skills? How do we ensure that individuals understand their children, their child psychology, how the children themselves are learning, how they are respond to parenting, how to deal with issues of discipline. And not too long ago, of course, the matter of corporal punishment in schools was a matter addressed. Of course, many countries, even very developed countries, allow for corporal punishment at the home. Are there other ways of dealing with that matter? Is this still something that we want to have? All of those discussions, of course, as to how to support parenting is very, very important. Of course, there will be some who still believe that they should have that right to be able to discipline in such ways. And so building up parents, building up families certainly is a very, very important direction that, generally speaking, the thinking is that, well, this is a private matter, right? This is your home, and how you raise your children is a private matter in that regard, and there really is not any say. But the reality is as well that we have tended to depend on institutions, and let's just call them maybe cultural institutions in a very general sense, to guide and give direction in terms of child rearing and how children should be brought up. And so in the past, maybe it would have been through churches, religious institutions, and they would have been certainly a major player in that regard. But we do know that in the past, we've also had institutions like mothers and fathers groups, which, again, on the name of it suggests that, they would probably be there for the development of mothers and fathers. We know that quite often they have unfortunately not really been geared towards that per se, maybe more towards entertainment and parents coming together. But there certainly is a very, very important role that can be played in this regard. The major challenge we should also mention is that you have real situations where parents simply cannot manage. They get to the point where, for whatever different reasons, whether their own abuse issues, drug abuse issues, for example, you've got challenges in terms of being able to support parents' mental health issues, and you do have to look at the issue of foster care. And that is also another really, really important area that you really have to provide good support for. There is that belief by some that, no, I'm not going to take on this child if this child is too old, and then the habits are already set in, and so they don't want to reach out, and they don't want to take on that a difficult situation. And unfortunately, so a lot of children don't get into those nurturing, positive environments, given the fact that the parents themselves may not be able to support just that. So certainly, we do have to look at that entire support system of social support system when it comes to the matter of our children. When we're seeing our children who are already being shot on streets, and who are being attracted into gangs. We've mentioned before this 6 and 7 phenomenon coming out of Trinidad. And so many different players, of course, the schools, we didn't mention them, but others certainly have to be part of that answer with respect to tackling crime and crime prevention. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we're going to take in our weather report, and then we'll head to speak to the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund. We'll be right back.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lunchroom in Castries, Bosses Grocery Lanes, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, tile and bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. The weather, fair skies becoming cloudy at times with occasional scattered showers. The forecast for the Los Angeles is partly cloudy to cloudy at times with widely scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms, mainly over the Leeward Islands. And the tropical weather outlook, moist and unstable conditions will cause widely scattered showers over the Los Angeles during the forecast period. A tropical wave associated with an area of low pressure located over the western tropical Atlantic has a low chance of tropical cyclone formation during the next 48 hours and 7 days. This system is moving westward near 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour and is expected to begin affecting the northern portion of the Los Angeles late tonight into tomorrow. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and insects, mixes and grout. Everything you need, we sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
All right, and welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Hope you're having a very good lunch indeed. Now, the matter of CMOS is one which I think many have become quite interested in. We've heard quite a lot of good success over the years with respect to CMOS cultivation and CMOS production. And it's no longer simply about local demand. St. Lucia CMOS has gone international and is in fact pretty sought after around the world at this point. And no doubt quite recently we also heard about Export St. Lucia coming on board in terms of providing support as well as certification and standards with respect to CMOS production. But you've also got a spare thought, no doubt, for where that CMOS is actually being grown. And as it well suggests, it's in seawater. It is in our nearshore marine space. And sometimes there are some potential conflicts and impacts that come about as a result of just that. What are the areas of interest? Savans, Savan Bay in the south of the island, in the Miku Vieux area, is one of the major areas of production. Another one might be Prale, but we focus on Savans for today and helping that cause in terms of looking at providing some order and structure to the CMOS industry is that of the National Conservation Fund. And I'm so very pleased to have the head of the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund, Mr. Craig Henry, with me here in studio today to discuss some of the initiatives that SLNCF is bringing forward. Craig, thank you so very much for joining me here at the lunchroom. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Alex, for having me here once again. And obviously, you have done a marvelous introduction of the issue. I don't think we should spend much time on that. But just to say that the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund is in fact interested in supporting conservation activities and sustainable use, of course, sustainable development, sustainable livelihoods. And we've been working in collaboration with Department of Fisheries and Export St. Lucia, like you mentioned, and some other stakeholders, the St. Lucia National Trust. Given that the focal area of the project is Savans Bay, which falls within the wider Point Sab Environmental Protection Area.
Yes. Craig, before you get too deep into what we mean to discuss, I know there may be some people out there who are not even familiar with the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund. I think it's fair to say you haven't really been, you're a new kid on the block somewhat in comparison to a number of the more traditional conservation actors. What is the National Conservation Fund? Tell us a little bit about that first.
So let me simplify it, and thanks for that intervention there. So I represent an agency, it's a fundraising agency, but it has a dual role. So what we do is basically we secure sustainable finance, and that simply means that we try to raise funds from various donors. We have one of the major donors, of course, is Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, under which we fall. And with those funds that we are able to obtain, we provide grants. grants of various nature to support sustainable livelihoods, community projects that are environmentally and sustainability based. We support livelihoods, of course. And essentially, the Conservation Fund was established in 2016. We've been around since then. We've had some very significant partnerships over the years. I mentioned the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, but also locally, the SLHTA Tourism Enhancement Fund, Marcy, and I would say recently Republic Bank EC. So all these private sector and government, we've had partnership with, based on the fact that there is an interest in, of course, active conservation practice, grassroots level interventions that require support. And the SLUNCF is a unique creature because of our ability and flexibility to support both government agencies, private sector, and even community-based organizations. So
I suppose you have an advantage, you want to say that, as opposed to say government agencies.
Correct.
Because there are quite a lot of multilateral agencies out there who want to work more
directly
with the
yes.
community.
So they don't necessarily, it becomes a challenge working through the government or through the state, but then they want to find an agency or an opportunity through which they can move more directly with grassroots programs and groups and so on and so forth. So the SLUNCF as a conservation fund has that flexibility and is really uniquely positioned and poised to make that kind of support. Let me do one thing here. Whereas you have other grant mechanisms that exist, ours is one that shows strategic investment and partnerships where it matters, especially with our community-based organizations. Because it's not just simply about providing funds. For us now, it's looking at properly and closely the capacity of local groups and so on and so forth to deliver those projects. You might know that is an issue with the grant-making landscape in the Caribbean as well, given the capacity of groups to deliver, how they scope their projects, how their ability to deliver, or even to complete projects. That's the other thing too. So what we have designed our grant-making program in such a respect where we not only focus on the grant itself or the project, but those folks who are implementing the projects, they get very close scrutiny. But the result of that is that there is support, ongoing support, capacity building, trying to get technical support and otherwise to ensure that the groups themselves are able to deliver. And then when we are satisfied that that is the case, we are able to move into a partnership where we can issue the grant. But we don't walk away. We look at it as an investment whereby there's some hand-holding there. And we will try to, again, provide other pillars of support, like through mentorships and so on and so forth. So that will strengthen the institution of these community-based organizations, but also of the initiatives so that they have greater impact where they should have. Right?
So it's not just about giving grants money.
It's not just
you're actually also doing the stewarding, ensuring that they can build. You're building a partnership, effectively.
Essentially. And our interventions are closely aligned with the national government priorities, which is the other thing too. It's not just out of the box or, we work in a silo where we're just funding anything. So government priorities are sustainable agriculture, youth economy, blue economy. So those sectors that are getting attention and those efforts that are out there through the Ministry of Agriculture, or through Export St. Lucia. So we pay attention to those things. And then what we try to do is take a look at what the gaps are and what are the opportunities. So what we also do is we also try our best to collaborate so we can maximize the pool of resources that are available, the technical and otherwise, that are channeled or brought to those areas. And so there is information sharing, whether best practice, but also the opportunity to maximize or get optimum from the results that, whatever it is, whether or not we're supporting honey production. Apiculture is big right now. And there's a whole network of honey producers, whether on large scale or individual scale. But there are also issues with honey production in St. Lucia with regards to how it is bottled or foraging areas for the bees and so on. So all these challenges come into play, and we have discussions. So we are in tune with what's going on in the area. And so where our support comes is that where we see an opportunity where we can provide that, improve, where we can now work with partners to really bring that forward and move the agenda in a manner that is sustainable, pragmatic, and contextualized.
So CMOS, as we said, is becoming a pretty big business in St. Lucia. In fact, I think at one point I even heard the head of the CEO of Export St. Lucia almost suggesting that it's one of our leading exports at this point in time, which is remarkable, given how it has exploded so quickly. But we don't often think about the actual resource, the natural space within which CMOS is actually being produced. Now, a lot of people know about Prale, and I mean, we can understand why it's perhaps a pretty good place, sheltered bay, relatively shallow. But Savans also similar sort of dynamic there in terms of also on the Atlantic coast, but also very sheltered. And it's becoming a pretty big producing area as well.
Yeah, very, very. As a matter of fact, I was shocked. I have been to Savans Bay countless of times, and I went there in December last year. There were many farms, of course, that have been established there. It blew my mind. When I went back there last month, they were exceedingly more than I saw in December. So that just goes to show you that it is lucrative business, without a doubt. The value of CMOS in terms of the earnings has moved up to $2 million. Now imagine that, and that's not something that's regulated like bananas. There's not much, pretty much people doing a lot on their own. Yes, there is more attention being paid to it in terms through of the Ministry of Agriculture, through the Department of Fisheries. You have other important stakeholders like Export St. Lucia who've been trying to do a very important task of bringing some order of certification and standards, reinforcing standards. Because what we must recognize is as the export increases in value, it brings more attention to it. Because CMOS was really under the radar in St. Lucia, although particular people who were into CMOS in terms of kind of a lifestyle kind of
and I mean, it does have a bit of a history here. I know, I think Canary and the work that people like Yves Renard used to do way back.
But for the external, for the global market, it was, something that if you were interested and you had, a healthy lifestyle, CMOS was something that you consumed. However, within the last, I'd say 5 years, we recognized that the market for CMOS had changed significantly in terms of the demand. And whereas there were not established yet standards for where it was not pretty widely practiced, where is the proper place to propagate CMOS and so on and so forth. But that the demand was outpacing our ability to monitor and regulate. So you had that particular situation. And what that compounded it was the value, the amount that CMOS was fetching on the market. Imagine an 3-ounce packet fetching something like $40. That's an amazing thing. Something that does not require a lot of input, right? And so what also exacerbated that is COVID. So when people were out of work, that became like a natural thing to get into. I mean, people who were either laid off or near retirement decided that, yes, they would jump into CMOS. And I can tell you that that really created a situation, not just Savans, but all over the island. There were CMOS farms popping up everywhere.
I was shocked at one point to see them in the Rodney Bay area.
Exactly, and they're still there.
All over the place as well.
So that of course, economic pressures cause people to go back to the natural environment, which is something that we always see. So obviously, the numbers have gone down in terms of the people, but the farms are still there. A lot of not those people who were already into CMOS only expanded. You had a few more people who came in. So the focus on Savans was really to pilot what we call bringing some kind of governance or regulation to how sea moss is cultivated within especially a protected area when we talk about, because of its the area has high ecosystem value. There are seagrass meadows, coral reefs, coastal mangroves, and so on and so forth. Why is that important? Because a lot of the sticks that are used for sea moss farms come from roundwood, which are part of the coastal vegetation. So you're affecting coastal habitats right there. The seagrass meadows are affected because while people are walking the seabed, putting in those sticks and also wading into the water, what you have is a lot of trampling of the seagrass meadows, and obviously it's creating an issue. The other thing we notice is that there's a lot of use of plastics as floaters for the sea moss lines. So while on the traditional way that people on a level that we were seeing before, let us say 2018, that was not so significant. It was still a concern. But just imagine.
It's ramped up.
That's right. And so what we recognize and the opportunity came through the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. They had this biopower program, which was sort of like a rapid response to COVID. And the scope of that opportunity was broad enough to say that they wanted to address two things: unemployment pressures, but as well as conservation. And where we were able to convince that that was an investment worthy is that we're saying, okay, yes, we want to ensure that there is an opportunity. We're keeping the opportunity for folks who have suffered enormously because of COVID, but then we also want to pay attention to the economic, the ecological sustainability of Savans Bay, which is, Ramsar site and so on and so forth. So basically, we wanted to do three things. We wanted to have some kind of order in the bay in terms of trying to delineate areas where hopefully sea moss could take place that had less impact. We were also trying to bring in better practice, environmental sustainable practice in terms of, what kind of materials could be used as a substitute for the roundwood and the plastics, of course. And as well, bring a little bit more cohesion among the sea moss farmers themselves in terms of how to regulate themselves and agree to some kind of management framework or mechanism that would, one, lead to some kind of consensus on this same zoning thing I'm talking about, where they would agree that they could be, and then allow for other users and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
right?
Because right now it's a bit of a wild, wild west, isn't it?
That's
because I mean, the government owns the seabed.
Yeah.
As of now, there's no real renting or payment to government for the use of that seabed. So it really is, I guess, a situation of first come, first serve. Whoever
Anybody
plants their stakes first and says, "Hey, I'm claiming this area."
Yeah. And so so you had that conflict among some sea moss farmers themselves, but also other users. So remember, Savans Bay is not only known for sea moss, but it's a fish land inside.
Right.
So you have, and those fishers have a very narrow corridor to get into this area because of the how the seafloor is there and the seabed, and with all the rocks in the area. So what obviously happened is that sea moss farms were encroaching on those I should say navigational zones or routes, if you want to, for want of a better phrase. And obviously you got entanglements and so on and so forth, and that was creating a problem because not only did you have fishers from Savans Bay who were also sea moss farmers, but you had people from all over St. Lucia coming to Savans Bay who were not familiar with what was going on there.
Almost like a gold rush. Speculators coming in.
That's what it was. So, but we also saw, and that came as well because of the people who came into sea moss just for money, but were not familiar with what sea moss cultivation was, and eventually left, abandoned their prospects, but they left the sticks in the water. Now, that's a hazard.
Right.
Because when those sticks, when they remain in the water, some of them break off, but the submerged part is still there.
It can be pretty dangerous. As well.
Very dangerous, and somebody has even gotten hurt because of it. And that is something that we saw, we observed, and we predicted would have happened.
Right.
So you have a number of these abandoned farms that have to be addressed, and nobody's really, again, there's no regulation or management authority there to say, okay, well, this farm is abandoned, so what do we do about it? CMOS is something that some people practice seasonally as well. So at certain points in the year, it is more lucrative, or it flourishes more. So accordingly, some people, they would leave their stakes in the water. It may have the appearance of it being abandoned, but those people may come back. Yeah. So there's that dynamic as well. So is
there a signage part of this project at all? I'm just wondering.
Yes, there's supposed to be, because you see what I will say in short is that the zoning aspect of it is more complicated than we initially thought, because what has to happen is that there must be some kind of agreement,
right?
And then it has to be enforceable.
So it's almost like you have to create a similar
like a marine
that's right. SMMA situation.
Yeah,
a marine management area, and you've got to now go in and demarcate.
Yes, so we learn from SMMA, but you see, that's the thing that does not exist in Savans Bay. Now, the wider area, which is the Point Saba Environmental Protection Area, there's a management plan that's been revised by, or also by support from BioPharma through the St. Lucia National Trust. And we understand that also a marine special plan is being put together for this area through the support of other projects, right? So while all these discussions are good and of course positive, but it takes time. But that in the interim, you have the situation is getting worse, because like I tell you, the number of farms that are there now, you wouldn't believe. And I think you should take a trip down there.
I've never seen the Savan situation. I've seen some in Prale.
Yeah. I must invite you down there.
It would definitely be interesting to see.
You can take a boat tour there, and you would be surprised.
And I know also, of course, in the whole Savans area, there was a push as well for ecotourism. So people using kayaks.
Yeah, and that's
potentially be conflicting as well.
And there's both opportunity and conflict. If it's not managed, you'll get a conflict. If it's managed, then there's opportunity for everybody to benefit, because the kayakers themselves can use the CMOS farms as a point of interest for their tours. So we recognize that and say, okay, this is why we've had several discussions with the stakeholders and so on and so forth. One of the things we did was we did a little bit of a survey of people, the CMOS farmers, the fishers, and people from Savans Bay and Opicon who live in the area, to find out what is the temperament for more regulation of the activities, right? And while most people who don't necessarily actively participate in CMOS cultivation agree that there should be some regulation, you'll be surprised to see that a lot of the CMOS farmers think that things are not necessarily bad and things can remain that way. So
it's another hassle for them, right?
Perspective. But what I would say is that what we have done, or we recognize that, okay, so we had to really, I wouldn't say we had to really revise our initial hoping that we would have gotten a zone and plan for the area. These consultations are going to, or discussions are going to continue, because I understand there's a real plan afoot. There's some maps that have been provided and so on and so forth for a partner agency project of fauna and flora. They have 2 projects in the area as well. So what has happened though is that what we've been able to agree to is that some boating lanes that are going to be demarcated, and these were agreed upon. There was a gentleman's agreement among the fishers and the CMOS farmers that they say, okay, these areas should remain clear of CMOS farms, and then we are going to be demarcating those in probably by next week. So they have they're going to put those in place. We had a consultation last September where we did introduce to them and given them the fishers, the CMOS farmers, and others idea of where those boating lanes are. I must tell you that SLASPA is involved. The Office of the Commissioner of Crown Lands is also involved.
Because they're the owners of the seabed.
Because the other discussion that you brought up, but which is a reality that's going to happen, is that they will literally have to start leasing the seabed to those CMOS farmers as I should say a governance measure, because what will happen is that potentially CMOS farmers may have to start leasing.
Is there an idea that's fine in terms of the yield that we're talking about? I mean, let's say for an acre of CMOS, do we know how much?
I cannot honestly say. What I tried to get was what it is, how many lines. If you have 100 lines of CMOS, how much would that bring to you? So what I found out was, and if I'm correctly, if you have, let us say, 88 lines of CMOS, you potentially can get like 100 pounds of dry CMOS
over a period of whatever time.
Yeah, over a period. So it is, and I hope I'm quoting right here, but so it takes a lot of CMOS, the fresh and the turgid CMOS to get dry CMOS, which is why you have all these farms. So while there is still space, and that's one, I believe that Savans Bay is filled. I honestly believe that we should right now find a way of saying,
so
okay, you know what?
A cap at this point.
Yeah, at this point, let's look at this as there are enough farms there. And the other thing too is that there's opportunity for other methods of cultivation.
Right.
So
the deep lines.
That's right. Well, because other areas that have using those alternative methods already. The deep lines, instead of using the wood, the rounded wood, they use PVC pipes.
Okay.
And it's designed in a particular way where it can float. You don't have to use the plastic bottles and so on and so forth. So there are a number of interesting things that are happening in the sector, but it has to be more organized. And you have to get the CMOS farmers, you have to bring them along. It's not like they will not listen. As with anything else, it takes a little bit of a convincing.
Well, I'm already challenging it because we're already out of time. And it would be great to actually hear maybe from some of the CMOS farmers as well, and their experiences in terms of the whole business.
Without a doubt.
So we'll be looking forward to certainly having some follow-up conversations on
But what would be interesting, Calix, is for you to come down there to see. I think Savans Bay would be a very interesting area as a pilot for how CMOS should be practiced in especially sheltered bays and so on and so forth. So I will keep that promise to you that I will schedule a visit for you and anybody else who may want to tag along.
We have to go in some kayaks and make that trip. Definitely.
You think I'll put you on a boat?
I think Ipa is up for that.
yeah, man. No, seriously. So we will do that. And it's something we can. It will be an educational tour. But I invite anybody here who has the interest to really pay attention to those things. It's really, and there, like I said, there are some enormous work. A lot of work is being done by the Department of Fisheries, by Export St. Lucia, to throw some attention towards the fact that CMOS can be done sustainably. We just have to get in the habit of doing it.
Wonderful, wonderful indeed. Thanks so very much, Craig Henry. He is the head of the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund, and the work that they're doing in supporting the CMOS sector, subsector here in St. Lucia, specifically the producers in the Savans Bay area. So, of course, big shout out to all of them there. It's an area that a lot of St. Lucians drive by, I know, on going down to VA4, but don't often actually stop, except maybe that little Heineken bar, I think. But that's a very popular spot, I think. But certainly a beautiful, beautiful part of St. Lucia indeed. And so thanks for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And of course, to all our listeners, thank you for listening. And we do hope that you enjoyed the balance of your day. We'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another program. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.